Yosef Ben Aura, אני כפרת משכבו, למנוח. I sometimes think about fertile land. So when you have fertile land, one of the problems is overusing the land, over farming the land. So when you over farm the land, as rich as land is, if you over farm it, eventually the topsoil gets depleted and then the yield goes down. That's a common problem with farming. And in fact, if for those of you who know history, in the 1930s, there was a famous dust bowl. So the dust bowl was caused not just by drought conditions, but by the fact that there was over farming of the land. A similar thing happens with the mind. And even in the case of geniuses, where they have very fertile, rich minds at a particular point in their life, they think of an idea, they think of something that nobody thought of before, but then after that, the mind doesn't have any more creativity. That happens a lot. A good example is Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein, at a relatively young age, formulated the theory of relativity, and the theory of relativity was phenomenal. I mean, it was an incredible scientific calculations and scientific rules, and he changed the face of science till today. But after that, he didn't have too many creative things that we can think about, meaning his creativity became limited. One thing that was so interesting about my father, and I was actually I was tracking it, his mind was always creative. He was always coming up with new chidushim. He was always exploring new ideas for decades and decades and decades. So it's not just that he was a genius, which he was, but the fertility of his mind, the ideas he came up with, every year, a new chidush, a new concept. And I just want to take you through his first publication. So his first publication was in the 60s. He wrote an article called Understanding the Covenant. And this is a great example. We spoke about Albert Einstein changing the world of physics. So my father, in that one article, he in a sense regenerated and recreated what it means to be a Jew. And because until that article, everybody viewed Judaism as some sort of religion. So you have different religions. You have Hinduism, you have Buddhism, you have Christianity, you have Islam, you have Judaism. It's just another religion, and everybody chooses what they want. And in that article, my father framed things in a dramatic, new way that was all but forgotten, because over the course of generations and with the galut, we begin to become mentally assimilated. So we view Judaism as a religion. And when he showed in that article, and which is amazing because it's so basic, it's right there in the Torah, black and white. It's repeated by Chachamim over and over again, and yet, it was kind of forgotten. So what does he show in that article? He says that, what is it that's unique about Am Yisrael? What is it that differentiates us from the different nations of the world? Well, what is it? So people could try to say, well, we put on tefillin, we do some mitzvot, we follow religious practices. But what does it all come down to? Why do we put on tefillin? Why do we follow these religious practices? What is it that makes us Jewish? Can you answer it in just a short sentence or even a paragraph? And in Understanding the Covenant, he points out that we are the nation that entered into an understanding with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We accepted his offer. He made us an offer. The offer was Ve'atem tihiyu li mamlechet kohanim v'goy kadosh, and we accepted it. Until today, we are bound, and by accepting that offer, we entered into a contract with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what we call a covenant, a berit in Hebrew, and that berit binds us till today. That's what makes us Jewish. Why do we perform the mitzvot? Why do we follow the Torah? Because we committed to follow the Torah to God. That's such a fundamental concept. And what's amazing is when my father would teach in the law school in Netanya. He used to teach religious kids, kids who were less religious, kids that were completely devoid of any understanding of Torah, not by any fault of their own. But nevertheless, he would introduce them to this concept. And it had such credence to it. It made so much sense. It's a commitment. It's not a religion. There's a lot of religions. There's a lot of feelings out there. But this is law. And we all understand. If you live in America, you follow American law. You live in France, you follow French law. You live in Switzerland, Swiss law. You're a member of the Jewish nation, Jewish law. And what is Jewish law? Jewish law is the Berit. We enter into a Berit. The basis of the Berit is Hashem says, I want you to follow the law. What is our law called? Torah. So that's a dramatic new idea. And I have to tell you, by the way, the article was written in the 60s. I think we're still decades away from this idea of becoming part of normative Jewish thinking. It's in the Torah. It's in Perashat Yitro. Half of Sefer Devarim is talking about the covenant. The Hachamim emphasize it. The Midrashim emphasize it. And we're still dilly-dallying around this article. We still haven't discovered, as Jewish educators, as yeshivot, as batei midrash, as intellectuals, academicians, this article has yet to be discovered. It was written in the 60s, and it's got to be discovered, because all great ideas become discovered. I mean, everything, all great ideas, thinkers who are ahead of their time, eventually the truth just comes out like a ray of light in a dark room. It's just going to come out. Another idea that my father spoke about, and this was also revolutionary. Israel in the 70s, the Sephardim had a sense, and I'm not going to get into the reasons, and I'm not going to blame, it's nothing to do with any of that, but the Sephardim, at the religious level and many other levels, at the Torah level, we felt a sense of inferiority. Many Sephardim in Israel were studying in yeshivot that were not in conformance with their traditions. It was in conformance with the Ashkenazi traditions, and God bless them, of course. But the Sephardim didn't have an identity. And my father felt tremendous pain at this, because he was saying, why don't we have an identity? We have our Hachamim. We have generations upon generations of dynasties of Hachamim, not just a Hacham in a specific era. What my father spoke about, and this is why he wrote that book, the Yisrael Shachadam, which was the first book he wrote, was to reawaken what it meant to be a Sephardi. So let me now answer that question. So I asked, what does it mean to be Jewish? Well, what does it mean to be a Sephardi? So let's raise our hand. Oh, it means eat kibbeh on Shabbat, or I use Makam Nahawan for Perashat Korah, or okay. And what my father shows in this book is to be Sephardi is not an ethnic distinction. It's a particular way of thinking. It's a particular approach to Torah and mitzvot. And you know what? That approach to Torah and mitzvot is a very appealing approach. To many people, maybe not to everybody, but it's appealing to many people, the approach. So what is the approach to Torah and mitzvot of the Sephardi Hachamim, of the Sephardi thinking? And the approach was an integrative approach. There's two approaches. One approach says, well, if we have Torah and mitzvot, and there's something out there that doesn't reflect our values, what do? Okay, oh my gosh, that's scary. I better put a cover there. I better put a wall. I better cover my eyes. I better do something, because that doesn't reflect my values. And if I'm going to be exposed to that, I may end up leaving Judaism. That was one approach. I was not the Sephardic approach, the Sephardi approach of the Hachamim of Sepharad, Andalus in particular, was integrated. And that approach says, we're not afraid. Well, why would we be afraid of a foreign culture? We have the best culture. We have the best tradition. We have the best set of rules, the best ethical system, the best moral code. We weren't afraid. And if we see something out there that's beautiful, hey, you know what? Let's take it. Let's use it. So you see that they have a beautiful melody, Abdul Wahab, and everybody loves Abdul Wahab. Pick it and make a beautiful Kaddish from Abdul Wahab. Yeah, that's good. So that's why I call it integrative. And that's why my father talks about it being Moshe Hazan. Another amazing idea. Till today in Israel, people have this craziness. You have to be totally religious. Haredi. You live in this, ghetto type environment. You can't see anything, because if you see anything, God forbid, you'll totally lose it. You'll go crazy. And the other approach is, no, we got to be totally the flip side of the first approach. We don't want to see anything religious. We don't want to see anything to do with Torah and Mitzvot. So here's another example of an amazing idea, which it was written in the 70s, but it's yet to be discovered. The idea of the integrative approach of Am Yisrael. I'm going to give one more example, because I know there's other Chachamim. Okay.
Take your time.
So another example. The book he wrote in the, I think it was the 80s, Golden Doves. His magnum opus, many would say. So what does he do in the Golden Doves? So, and as you see, the point of this humble Hesped is to show how he never stopped thinking. He never stopped generating ideas. It's not just E equals MC squared, theory of relativity, and that's it, no more. He was always generating new ideas. So here's the next one, Golden Doves. This is what the Golden Doves deals with. So you have ideality. I'll tell you what ideality is about. Ideality is what's in my mind. I'm thinking of something. Okay. How can I convey to you what's in my mind? And the way I convey what's in my mind is through speech. Right? So I have a thought, I'm thinking of something in my mind, and then I'm going to choose a word to convey what I'm thinking about, right? But here's the thing. If I want to speak about an experience, I want to teach you something. I want to convey a message to you that's beyond your field of experience. And I'm going to use words to convey that message. There's going to be a tension. There's going to be a slight tension between what's in my mind and the words that I say. I'm going to try to explain you what I'm thinking about, but it may not fit perfectly, right? So the tension between ideality, thinking, and speech, articulation, that's not something that Chacham Fa'ur, my father, was the first one to talk about. That's something that the Chachamim spoke about. And it's an incredible idea, and I'll tell you why in a moment. But let me just say what the Chachamim spoke about. So the Chachamim spoke about Tapuchei Zahav b'maskiyot kaseh. So Tapuchei Zahav in the days of King Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon, there were these beautiful jewels, shaped like apples. They were gold. And the gold, it was hanging like a necklace, that gold apple. And the gold was covered with a silver mesh, right? So if you're looking far away, like you're standing far and you see a person with an apple, what type of apple do you think it is? You think, well, oh, it looks like silver, because, well, you're standing far away. But as you come closer and closer and closer, you begin to look and you see there's these like little holes, and you see, wait, there's gold over there. Behind the silver, there's gold. So the Chachamim speak about the Pasuk in Mishleh, Tapuchei Zahav b'maskiyot kaseh, davar dabur al ofnav. So they speak about that Pasuk, and they speak about the fact that you could have a great thought, but it's not enough to have a great thought. How do you articulate it? Now, not everything can be reduced to speech. There are some things that cannot be reduced to speech. So let's look at that jewel again. So what can you say with words? With words you can say silver. But what's behind the silver? Gold. The gold is the mind. So a smart person knows how to speak in a way where if you kind of look superficially, you see silver, and okay, I think I understand what he said. I think I understand what he said, but then you look a little more closely. Wait, hold on. You think you understand. Look more closely. You look more closely. There's gold there. There's something else I didn't even think about, and the gold is far more valuable than the silver. So you say, okay, why are Chachamim speaking about this? Why does Chacham Ford write a whole book, an entire book about this rabbinic concept? And the answer is, what is the Torah? The Torah is the speech of God. So you have the Almighty, His thinking, His words are conveyed to us, and we say, I understand that. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. There's one God. I guess that's easy, or maybe it's a little difficult. I get it, right? Anochi Adonai Elohecha Asher Hosaticha Mitzrayim V'Tedim Galti out of Egypt. So that's silver. But behind silver, there's gold, right? And it's not going to be a pure gold apple. You have in Shir HaShirim, Toreh Zahavim Nekudot HaKaseh, these beautiful gold doves, but all you see is the silver. So you see the tension making articulation. So this is like something so way out there. This is like, decades and decades, but it will be discovered. And again, you have a dark room, somebody shines a ray of light, the light will always disperse the darkness. It will be discovered. These ideas will be studied. Each one of his books, each one of his articles was another idea, was another incredible creation. And at the personal level, I used to call him up all the time. I used to speak to him. I used to ask him questions. And every time we studied Torah together, and we studied Torah regularly after the COVID-19, we used to get on Zoom. That was a blessing because suddenly we discovered Zoom, so even though we were far away, I was able to study Torah with him on a regular basis. Every time I studied with him, so literally the last time we studied, a few days before he passed away, every time we studied, he got another chidush, this pasuk, that pasuk. That's my father. He was very blessed. He was very blessed by Hashem because he really he had an incredible mind. I was once studying Torah late at night. This is about 10 years ago. I was in Israel. I was studying Torah really late at night, and I had one of the most difficult gemariot. I think the most difficult gemariot in the whole Talmud is Masechet Yevamot. It was a really tough sugya. I said, let me call up my father. I mean, it's like I'm in the middle of a sugya, but I'm gonna call him anyway. Whatever. Just so I've thought maybe if I chat with him, it would kind of help me understand it. So I'm kind of calling out, Dad, is it too late? I can talk. But there was never a time that I called my father, and he was like, he didn't. No, I can't talk now. Let's, It's like it was the opposite. If I didn't call him up every day, it was like, oh my gosh, what's wrong? But anyway, is it too late? No, yeah. So I tell him, listen, I'm studying this Gemara in Masechet Yevamot. I'm having some trouble understanding. I start telling him the sugya. He says, yeah, that's Daf Peh Dalet Amud Bet. Oh, your question is this, right? I'm like, what? Really? Wow. It doesn't make any. The truth, it doesn't make any sense. It just, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, at least for me, not having that mind. So he had an incredible mind. And I want to just finish with the following thought. And I think many of you would understand this. So, imagine there's a pile of wood, rods of wood. So it's just kind of out there in the middle of the field. So a couple of people come by, they look and they say, wow, this would make a great magic wand. And they become magicians. They become wizards. They have this wood. Harry Potter. Okay, other people come by, they look at the wood, they say, wow, I can use this as a scepter. I can become a king. And they pick up the wood and they use it for authority. Look at this, authority. So they become kings. Other people come by and they say, wow, look at these wood. I can use it as a club. I can use it to hit. So they use it as a club to hit. And the wood is getting depleted. There's not too much wood. There's one piece of wood there. And a chacham comes by and he looks at the wood and he says, what is this? And he realizes this wood is still alive. It was once part of a tree, but the tree was kind of cut down and there's a wood. And he looks at the wood and he says, it's still alive. And he says, where does it come from? So he starts walking in the field and he sees there's a well of water, there's a spring of water. And where the spring of water is, you still have the remnants of the roots. And he takes the rod, he puts it in the ground, he cultivates the soil, the water begins to nourish the tree, it begins to let out leaves at first, and then the leaves turn into these beautiful flowers, and then the flowers become fruit, and people come by, and eventually, once the fruit are ready to be eaten, the people come by and they begin to eat it, and they take the fruits, and they see inside the fruits, they're seeds, and they start planting their own trees by that river of water, by the fountain of water. I think to a certain extent that's the story of my father. I really think he saw the Torah as an es hayim. He didn't see the Torah as a way to do magic, as a way to have authority over people, as a way to, intimidate. He saw the Torah as something living, as a tree of life. And his sole interest in the Torah was, how can I bring this tree back to life? How can I use this tree as a way to feed Am Yisrael? Because there's beautiful fruits from the tree. And Am Yisrael is hungry. They just want the fruits. And I think that the tree that he planted, Es Hayim Hidamah Hazikim, I think the tree he planted, it's going to have a lot of fruits, and people are going to come by the fruits, they're going to start eating the fruits, and they're going to start planting their own trees. And this is eventually going to lead to a revolution in Am Yisrael. And it's not really a revolution, because we're actually reconnecting with the past. Just, the revolution is relative to where we are today, right? I just want to make that clear. It's reconnecting with the Gemara, reconnecting with Chachmei Talmud, with Chachmei Andalus, with Harambam, with the Geonim. It's reconnecting with them. And once we're reconnected, that's it. We're back in business as a people.